Today on She Is, I sit down with Nadia Al Sultani, the author of Baghdad Stories, who shares with me why, as an Iraqi-American, she was compelled to write the book, and how the ongoing traumas in Iraq have shaped her life. Nadia Al Sultani was born in Baghdad, Iraq. At age 10, she moves with her family to America, and since she was caught in two symbolic currents, the East and the West. She has taken a series of journeys back to Iraq to find her place and the sense of who she is. Her book Baghdad Stories focuses on 3 trips that Nadia has made back to Iraq between 2001 and 2014. Her first journey was during Saddam's dictatorship, the second after the war, when she travels to the Green Zone as a high-ranking consultant for the United States Agency for International Development, helping to restore Iraq's economy and infrastructure. And the third, most recent and highly charged visit was in 2014, despite the rising terrorism and immediate threats. Hi everyone, welcome to She Is, and thank you for watching Woman to Woman TV, where women create, grow, and share their best with the world. I'm Lucia Dragos, and I have a very special guest for you today, Nadia Al Sultani, the
Hello.
author of Baghdad Stories. Hi Nadia, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Now I have to tell you, I read your book, and I was crying, and I was laughing, and I was amused, I was upset at some places, and I think a book should do that. A great book have to take you to the journey with all these emotions. I wrote the script before, and I know that the writing is a very lonely experience, and it takes a lot of dedication and determination. So what that experience told you about yourself? Did you learn something new about yourself, about your character? How was that experience for you?
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed the book.
Look at my notes.
I didn't start off to be a writer, so this actually been a very interesting experience for me. I started working on this book after my first trip to Iraq in 2002. When I came back to New York, people just had a lot of questions for me because they hadn't met anyone who had actually been to Iraq. You know, basic questions like how did you get there? You know, what do people there think? Well, how do people live? You know, there was a lot of Iraq was in the news, but it was only the news was at that time Saddam and weapons of mass destruction. There was no other depth to the Iraq story. People forgot about the lives of the 30 million people that also lived in Iraq and had to go on with their lives, given the fact that the U.S. was about to invade. So when I came back, people were just asking me just basic questions, and I was lucky because I was one of the few foreigners at the time who was able to visit Iraq. So, you know, I'd go around and answer a lot of questions, and I just thought that I should actually start writing the story about Iraqis and how they lived, because I just felt like their voices weren't heard. Started writing the book in 2002 and continued to write and rewrite and edit for the next decade. So
Wow.
The book has been a work in progress for over 12 years because of my schedule and sort of writing and putting it away and picking it up again and working on it again. So it's been a long process. But going back to what you're saying, writing is a very disciplined process. You have to carve out the time. You have to be patient and edit and re-edit sort of all the time. And it's kind of hard to know when you're done because there's always so much more that you could write about. There's always so much more that you could express and differently, saying things different ways. So it's been a very good process, but I've learned a lot from it for sure.
So you said something that actually I go through when I edit, because I edit most of the segments, and it's never ready. I always
Yeah.
feel like I can do more work. So was there a moment that you said, okay, that's it, it's enough, I'm done?
Yeah, I was actually working overseas. I do international economic development work, so every few years I actually work overseas and live there for a while. So I was in Turkey working for the Syria Recovery Trust Fund. Um, and just decided at that point that I just needed to finish the book. Because I was in Turkey, I also made a trip to Iraq, a personal trip, a difficult trip, and which I cover in part 3 of Baghdad Stories. And that trip just kind of brought the whole story back together. Um, so I made a decision to really just finish the book, and then I came back to New York, and I just took the time and just finished it. Now, when I look at the book, I always think I could re-edit here and change this and make this better. So at one point, I just literally had to stop and just get the book out. I mean, it's like I said, it's been in progress for many, many loving years.
I think every author feels that way, every creator,
Yeah.
every artist. Now, what do you want to accomplish with the book?
I really just wanted to, I mean, I wrote the book many years ago because I really wanted to get the story of Iraq and Iraqis out there. And I still feel that this book is unique, and there are a lot of books that cover Iraq from a political point of view, from a historical point of view, but there isn't really a book that delves into everyday Iraqis and how they lived, and just having their voices speak for them, and just about their hardships, their insecurities, the suppression that they endured, the death, the violence. I mean, this story has so much. And I just wanted their voices to be heard and have people just realize at the end of the day that Iraqis are like people everywhere. They want to, live, and they want to love, and they want to work, and they want to create, and they want to express, and they want to be heard, and they want to live in peace, and they just want to things that we all do.
Now, I'm an immigrant, I'm from Bulgaria, and when I go back and I see my family, my friends, they have different experiences. They're not very fortunate in many ways that I am here in the United States. And it's a very humbling experience, and it makes me realize that I have a lot more than many people, and it makes me feel grateful. Now, reading the book, you went through some of those experiences. For example, with your cousin, the elevator story. Did it make you appreciate more what you have here in the United States?
Absolutely. I think I came to the U.S. at such a young age, so I was, raised here, and I've taken so many things for granted. And when I went back to Iraq and saw, how my cousins, and I was fortunate that I had female cousins my age that I was very close to, and our experiences, which you could read in the book. And, it was just basically a few events that were not within my control that ended up for my life to have a completely different trajectory. My mother met my stepfather. They got married. We weren't fleeing anything. We didn't come to the U.S. as refugees. She just got married. He happened to be working in the U.S. We actually immigrated here to come here only for a few years. She didn't want to stay in the U.S. for a long time. Then the Iran-Iraq war happened, and et cetera, et cetera. So it was just basically them meeting that changed the course of my life. And it, so yes, of course, I'm grateful for many things. And but that also sometimes when I'm in Iraq, as I talk throughout the book, that comes with some guilt, because why was I the one who got away? Why do I have this sort of better life? And then when I go back, and it's very much in my face, and it's just...
That's what I wanted to ask you, because reading the book, that's how I feel sometimes when I go to Bulgaria and I see my friends and family, and you can't help everybody.
Yeah.
And sometimes it makes you feel guilty, yes. The book is filled with stories that make you realize that our experiences are so unique, and every person's life is filled with bumps along the way and challenges. Now, you mentioned that after 9/11, you felt guilty, and you thought that maybe your friends will judge you, but they never did. Do you still have that guilt or shame? Or?
No, I mean, obviously I felt 9/11 on many different levels. I'm an American, B, I'm a New Yorker. I actually was working at the World Financial Center during that time, which is the building right attached to the World Trade Center. The World Trade Center is where my subway stop was every morning, where I got to work. It's where I had lunch. You know, the World Trade Center for me was very, very personal. I just happened to be on vacation visiting my parents upstate New York when it happened. So obviously the news of that shook me to my core, because I had colleagues who were working and affected by this horrible tragedy. And again, you know, I wasn't there. And then as it emerged, you know, that Arabs were responsible for this, and being an Arab-American, and, you know, obviously there was a self-consciousness, like, what is this going to mean? Or how are people going to treat me? Or going to people look at me a little differently? And I've been vocal about politics in the region prior to that, but I didn't, you know, suffer any discrimination or any unkindness. So those were just sort of initial thoughts that are just initial insecurities, I guess, that are long gone.
Now, despite the rising danger in Iraq, you went for a third time back, and apart from your job obligations, did you feel like you had other duties? Why did you go back?
Yeah, this last trip that I took in 2014 was a personal trip, and I had lost my mother. This was the first time I'd gone back to Iraq, just me, and basically to visit my mother, who's her wish was to be buried in Iraq, so I went to visit her, and also to reconnect with my aunts who are getting older, and to sort of establish a new bond where it was going to be me and them, one-on-one, not through my mother anymore. So it was a very difficult trip.
Now, the book is very personal.
Yeah.
And it gives you a glimpse what's important in the end of our lives. It made me think what will be important in the end of my life, and what questions I would ask myself. And it made me reevaluate and rethink some of my relations that I have with my relatives. And I want to thank you for that, because if I didn't read the book, I don't think I would have asked myself those questions. Did you discover some things and values that you didn't think about it before writing the book?
I mean, I realized that I will always have this connection with my relatives, even though we don't see each other often, and, you know, we're separated by time and distance. But there's always going to be this connection where when we see each other, it's sort of like right where we just left off. So it doesn't matter that I live in the U.S. and they live there, and I think that connection is always going to be there, and that's very reassuring to know, because I don't have relatives in the U.S., so I'm always sort of by myself. I have siblings and immediate family here, but I don't have, you know, aunts and uncles in the larger community. But knowing now that I've spent time with them, knowing that they're, you know, I can call them, or I could see them, or I could just Skype with them, it's just a different connection, and I'm grateful for that.
Right. Now, as I mentioned, I'm from Bulgaria, and sometimes when I go back there, I'll say, oh, I miss New York, or I miss my home, and my relatives will get offended. When I'm here, I'll say, oh, I'm going back home for a visit, so people would be confused.
Yeah.
And then towards the end of your book, you called Iraq home. Where is home for you?
Home for me is New York. I mean, like I said, I was raised here. I've lived many places abroad, and this is the place I miss when I'm abroad the most is New York. I mean, this is the place I feel the most comfortable in. This is the place I keep coming back to and leaving from. It's a place where my immediate family lives. So even during the time when I lived in Washington, D.C. and California and different places, even within the U.S., there was always this sort of comfort with New York and association with New York that I don't have with any other place. Probably I feel the most comfortable here.
Are you thinking to write another book, and what subject would it be?
People have actually asked me that. I mean, I've gotten really positive feedback from the book. People have really enjoyed the book, and they've actually written me to ask if I would write some more. What I had wanted to do with the book is really focus on part one, which is what life was like for Iraqis under Saddam's sanctions. Because I had the experience of working for USAID and also in Iraq, and then my last trip, to sort of make the book a bit more current, I delved a little bit into part two and a little bit to part three, but as you read the book.
Yes.
It's very short compared to. So people actually want to know more about my experience in the Green Zone. You know, the 3 years I spent there, sort of what more things I'm doing now. So I mean, there are different thoughts in my mind, but for the immediate future, I don't have any plans just yet to write another book.
So what is next for you? What is going to happen with the book now?
So the book has been out for a few months. I've self-published the book because I just wanted it to be out there after all the years of me working on it. And right now, a publisher has approached me about sort of getting the book out in more traditional outlets like bookstores and sort of doing more of a publicity for the book and marketing. So I'm in discussions with a publisher now to take the book to that next level where it will have more exposure.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
That's great. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
But now if somebody wants to buy the book now, where can they find it?
Right now, it's still on Amazon. It's available in Kindle version, and it's available in hard copy, and it will be for the foreseeable future.
Great. Now, before we end, I want you to complete the statement referring to yourself. She is
unique.
I like that. You are unique. Reading your book, I was amazed. Yes, your experience is very unique.
Thank you
and
so
thank
much.
you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
That's it for today's show. Thanks for watching She Is. And don't forget, you are unique. Use it to your advantage. And each day, go beyond yourself. I'm Lucia Drago. See you next time.